Every year, thousands of people walk onto the stage of Britain's Got Talent believing talent alone will change their lives. But history shows something very different. The contestants who reach the final moments are usually carrying far more than skill. They carry pressure, timing, emotional control, and the ability to survive public expectation when millions begin watching every move. This year, two acts have quietly separated themselves from the rest. Matty Juniosa and Anastasiia Salsa are being talked about for very different reasons. And behind the performances, there are signs that this competition may already be turning into something far more psychological than people realize. At the beginning of the season, public attention was spread across dozens of contestants. But slowly, two acts began appearing repeatedly in conversations online, judge reactions, fan predictions, and audience discussions. What made this unusual was not simply talent. Many contestants were talented. What separated Matty Juniosa and Anastasiia Salsa was the emotional response they created almost immediately. For Matty, viewers appeared drawn toward unpredictability and control at the same time. His performances created the feeling that something could go wrong at any moment, yet rarely did. That balance created tension audiences remembered after the performance ended. Some viewers even began replaying clips online, trying to understand small details they missed during the first viewing. For Anastasiia and Salsa, the reaction developed differently. Their performances felt emotionally connected rather than technically distant. Viewers were not only reacting to choreography, they were reacting to trust, timing, and emotional synchronization between two people performing under pressure. Behind the scenes, dance rehearsals reportedly became longer as expectations increased, showing how quickly public attention can transform preparation into emotional strain. Another important detail quietly emerged during this stage of the competition. Audience discussion stopped focusing only on best talent and began focusing on future winner energy. That shift matters psychologically because it changes how every future performance is judged. But once contestants become favorites publicly, the pressure around them changes completely. What looked like rising popularity was quietly creating a new problem neither act could fully control. This chapter will be expanded into 500-600 words in Step 2. Public support inside major television competitions can become dangerous very quickly. Contestants who are suddenly called future winners often experience a psychological shift long before viewers notice it. Expectations become heavier than the performance itself. For Matty Juniosa, every appearance started carrying a different type of risk. Early mistakes are often forgiven when audiences are still discovering someone. But once a contestant becomes a favorite, viewers begin comparing every new performance against earlier success. This creates silent pressure that rarely appears on camera. Former reality competition contestants have often described this stage as emotionally exhausting because the fear of decline becomes constant. For Anastasiia and Salsa, the pressure appeared to become more physical as well as emotional. Dance partnerships depend heavily on emotional trust. Small emotional changes between partners can affect timing, energy, and confidence during live performances. As rehearsals intensified, viewers started noticing stronger emotional storytelling inside routines, which may have reflected how much emotional investment was entering the performances behind closed doors. Another psychological factor quietly entered the competition during this period: comparison culture. Fan communities began debating which act deserved victory more. Historically, this kind of audience division often changes the emotional atmosphere around major competition finales. And while the audience debated performances publicly, something much more important may have been happening privately. Behind the growing support, both acts were beginning to experience the emotional cost of becoming symbols instead of contestants. Television competitions are designed to show polished moments. What audiences rarely see is the emotional routine surrounding those moments. Waiting rooms, rehearsal stress, silence after performances, the long hours between public excitement and private recovery. For Matty Juniosa, part of the mystery surrounding his rise comes from how little viewers truly know about his internal preparation. Some performers naturally separate public personality from private emotion, which can increase curiosity around them. This often creates stronger audience fascination because viewers begin projecting their own interpretations onto the performer. For Anastasiia and Salsa, the emotional dynamic became more visible physically. Dance performances under pressure require near-perfect emotional timing. Behind-the-scenes training for competitive dance duos is often mentally exhausting because communication must stay stable even during stress and fatigue. Small frustrations can quietly affect performance chemistry without audiences understanding why. There is also another factor reality shows rarely discuss openly: emotional isolation. Contestants often become separated from normal routines during competition periods. Friends, family time, and emotional recovery become limited while public attention grows larger every week. By this stage, the competition was no longer simply about talent. It was becoming a test of emotional endurance under observation. And the closer both acts moved toward the finale, the more dangerous emotional exhaustion became. Winning major public competitions often depends on something audiences cannot fully explain. Technical skill matters, but emotional memory matters more. People vote for the performer they continue thinking about after the show ends. For Matty Juniosa, audience connection appears rooted in unpredictability and emotional tension. Viewers often become deeply attached to performers who make difficult things appear dangerous, but controlled. Psychologically, this creates adrenaline mixed with admiration. The audience feels emotionally involved because the performance appears risky even when carefully prepared. For Anastasiia and Salsa, the connection seems more emotional than suspense-driven. Their routines communicate vulnerability and trust through movement rather than words. This creates a very different audience reaction. Instead of tension, viewers experience emotional closeness. Historically, emotionally resonant dance acts perform strongly in public voting systems because audiences feel personally connected to the performers themselves. Another important detail quietly emerged online during this stage. Fan discussions stopped asking who is most talented and started asking who felt unforgettable. That difference may sound small, but psychologically it changes voting behavior completely. Because in competitions like this, viewers rarely vote only with logic. The competition was slowly shifting away from performance quality alone, toward emotional identity and public attachment. One of the least discussed parts of live competition television is how public expectation can quietly change performance behavior. Contestants often become less natural once they realize millions expect greatness every week. For Matty Juniosa, this created a difficult balance. Audiences wanted surprise but also consistency. Psychologically, those two demands often conflict with each other. Performers trying to stay unpredictable sometimes increase risk levels under pressure, which can either strengthen public admiration or create instability at the worst possible moment. For Anastasiia and Salsa, the challenge appeared different. Dance audiences often expect emotional escalation. Each performance must somehow feel larger than the last while still remaining emotionally believable. This can become mentally exhausting because emotional storytelling under pressure requires genuine emotional energy repeatedly. There is also a behind-the-scenes reality many viewers overlook. Contestants begin hearing constant opinions from producers, fans, social media, judges, and interviews all at once. Over time, outside voices can slowly interfere with instinct and confidence. Several past competition finalists from similar shows have later admitted that the final weeks felt emotionally confusing because they no longer knew whether they were performing for themselves or for public approval. And by this stage, that same psychological battle may already have started affecting both acts. The final performances were approaching, but the emotional pressure behind them was becoming harder to hide. History suggests that major talent competitions are rarely decided by talent alone. Timing, emotional narrative, audience loyalty, judge influence, and public perception often matter just as much as technical ability. For Britain's Got Talent, voting patterns from previous seasons reveal an important trend. Contestants who create emotional continuity with viewers often outperform contestants considered technically superior. People tend to support performers who feel personally meaningful to them over time. This creates an interesting comparison between Matty Juniosa and Anastasiia and Salsa. One act appears to generate suspense and fascination. The other creates emotional warmth and connection. Both psychological reactions are powerful, but they influence audiences differently. Another lesser-known factor is finale psychology. In live finales, audiences often remember the emotional feeling of the final performance more strongly than earlier rounds. This means momentum during the final night can completely reshape public voting within minutes. Behind the scenes, contestants often understand this reality better than viewers do. By the final stage, the competition becomes less about proving talent and more about controlling emotional atmosphere under extraordinary pressure. And sometimes, the winner is decided by one small emotional moment nobody expected. By the time the finale begins, the competition may no longer belong fully to the contestants themselves. By the end of the season, public conversation will likely focus on rankings, votes, and the final winner. But competitions like Britain's Got Talent often leave a deeper impact behind the scenes. For Matty Juniosa and Anastasiia Salsa, the experience itself may permanently change how they are seen publicly and privately. Sudden visibility changes relationships, routines, and emotional stability. Contestants often spend months chasing recognition, only to discover that public attention creates a completely new kind of pressure afterward. There is also the emotional reality of expectation after the show ends. Audiences often assume success immediately solves uncertainty. In reality, many contestants later describe feeling emotionally lost once the structure of competition disappears. This final chapter explores the possibility that the true story was never only about winning. It was about surviving public pressure while trying to hold onto identity, confidence, and emotional balance under constant observation. And whether either act wins or loses, the psychological impact of this season may continue long after the applause disappears. The finale may choose a winner, but it may not answer the deeper question both acts have been facing from the beginning. If people want to understand how talent competitions really work behind the performances, the most important story is often the one unfolding quietly away from the stage lights.